Welcome to Grant's Rock Warehouse, and tonight we are going to rank the albums of 38 Special. Tim Durling's here, and he's ready. I'm ready. Let's do it.
Talking bands no one talks about. Grant's Rock Warehouse.
Welcome to Grant's Rock Warehouse, and tonight I want to welcome Tim Durling to the show. Tim was just here not too long ago, well, like a month ago, and we ranked the albums of Loverboy. Well, Tim's back, and tonight we are going to look at the catalog of 38 Special. Tim brought this up, and he mentioned it, and I just saw 38 Special on the 80s cruise a month ago, and they were absolutely fabulous. So this goes hand in hand with that, and I said 38 Special, I am down. So we're going to talk about 38 Special. They were formed in like 1974 from Jacksonville, Florida. Donnie Van Zant of the Van Zant family. We all know that. Ronnie, Donnie, Johnny.
Yeah.
And Don Barnes started the band. And they do have quite an interesting catalog. When you really look at it, there's a lot of different variations, and the band started out one way, but they ended up in that mid-80s period to sound something a bit different. Now, if you look at the early albums and then look at the real late albums, they seem to they're much more similar. But we're going to look at that band, and we're going to get started. They had a lot of great hits in the 80s. I do have a compilation that I can recommend to everybody. This comp, it came out on A&M. I don't know if there's been anything else, but this comp is great. If you just want the hits and stuff, this thing is just packed full of just great tracks. And that's
There's
one thing about it.
There's another good one, Granted. Let me grab it so people see what it looks like. And this came out in 2001.
Okay.
From Universal Hippo, and
on Hippo. Okay.
It's just called 38 Special Anthology.
Mm-hmm.
It's 2 discs, and it's pretty complete. It's got a live track here. It's got a B-side that had never been on a CD before. So yeah, both good compilations to get.
Yeah, this one I can't remember. I think this was like, what year was this? This looks like, this is like 2003, I think.
So I think if that's the A&M years, that would stop in 1988. This one keeps going for the last few songs, so it's pretty up to date, and it's I mean, and if you're just looking for a single disc one, they had that Flashback in '87. That's a pretty good one too. So.
But you can get stuff. You don't necessarily have to have the whole catalog, but Tim and I are going to look at the catalog, and you just might want to venture down that road.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I've always really liked this band, and I always thought that they, along with bands like Loverboy, they never got enough credit for influencing bands that became really popular, in the mid '80s.
Mm-hmm.
The harder rock bands, the Bon Jovis of the world, and the idea of rock bands getting on the radio with guitar-based songs. But there's ups and downs, and I've been looking forward to doing this episode.
Oh, it's going to be fun. So we might as well get started. Yeah, there are 11 albums. They've had like a Christmas album. They've had some other lots of live records in their later career, but we're not going to talk about those. We're just talking about those core studio albums. And so we've come up with 11. So we're just going to talk about those. So anyway, I'm going to turn it over to Tim. Tim, what is your number 11?
So my number 11, what I like about this is the fact that sometimes when we do these ranking episodes, just because it seems to work out that way, you often end up with the more recent stuff down at the bottom, just because either you don't think it's that good or you haven't had that much time to live with it. But in the case of 38 Special, that's not the case. So we're going to rewind back to 1978 for the second 38 Special album, Special Delivery. This is a very old beat-up Canadian 8-track version. Very hard to find on CD.
Yeah, this is the A&M CD.
Yeah, I've got that too. I paid a fair bit for that because I think there was only one issue of it. It's got this weird cover by somebody named Neon Park. If you some of you may know that name. It's got like this two-headed cow. And the most interesting thing about this album by far for me is the album cover. because I don't really like this album much at all. I think that if 38 Special had continued in this vein, I don't think they would have had much of a career. I think they wouldn't have even been a footnote, other than the fact that they had a member of the Van Zandt family. There's one song on here that I kind of like, and it's called "What Can I Do." At this point, Donnie Van Zandt, I think, sang everything. I don't know. I don't think they realized what a great singer they had in Don Barnes at this point. And I just really don't like this early 38 Special stuff. It's very lightweight Southern rock, very conservatively recorded. There's not a lot of excitement, and I've got more to say about that. But as far as this being the last album of this early period, all I'm going to say is thank God for Jim Peterick.
Well, yeah. We'll get there.
Yeah.
But wow. See, I've rated that a lot higher. This is going to be a fun ranking, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh yeah, already
it's going to be controversial. Well, the thing is, we all hear this stuff differently.
Yep.
And what you hear and what I hear are two different things. The thing I want to mention, you mentioned that second album, though. It's really not a bad record, though. There is not really anything bad in the 38 Special catalog, I don't think. There's just different, I don't know.
It all depends on it. Yeah. If you're really, really into 70s Southern rock of all different shapes and sizes, then this is a perfectly competent Southern rock album. It's just, I know, going back, I know what they became, and I prefer what they became. So when I hear this, it's like, this is like Skynyrd Light to me.
Correct.
Actually, there's more of the Skynyrd Light. I'll talk about it later. Okay. I got more to say about that.
I know. See, we're going to be all over. We're going to be all over the map, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
But still, as we rank these, we do want to hear your ranking. If you're into all these 38 Special albums, or if you like the best ofs, tell us what you like. We want to hear. If there's tracks you like, Tim and I would love to hear what you have to say. So,
absolutely.
That being said, wow, Tim, this is going to be great. I have to admit, I'm going to have to go with 2004's Drivetrain. Only for the fact, because it's kind of the same thing that you've said. I know what came before.
Yeah.
This is a lot harder edge 38 Special. 7 years has passed since the last record that was on Razor and Tie called Resolution. It's a long time. And I thought we'd really get something. Well, you would hope to get something even better. But I don't know. Anybody expecting those tracks like Hold On Loosely, Fantasy Girl, anything with those melodic, powerful, how do I want to say it? It's almost
just
AOR
hooks, like irresistible hooks.
Irresistible hooks, Beatle-like. Let's say that. When I was on the 80s cruise and Don Barnes, they interviewed Don, which it's on my channel. Anybody go down there, look at it. It's great. Don was saying how much they wanted to sound like the Beatles. And it took them a while for them to get that sound of what they were doing. They wanted to do songs that were catchy, songs that had memorable hooks. When I listen to Drivetrain from 2004, I don't hear that. It's just them going pretty hard edge, a lot of bombastic guitar. The drums are kind of bombastic. It rocks hard, but you would hardly know it's 38 Special. It's not a bad record, though. But if you're looking for wild-eyed Southern boys, you're not going to find it here. And the other thing is, if you're looking for some hits, there aren't here. There are a lot of the tracks on here aren't memorable to me. They sound great. The band really can play. And I'm listening, I'm thinking, is that Don Barnes or is that Donnie Van Zandt singing? I can't tell. Back in the day, you could distinctly tell who was who. And I don't hear that here. It's just like, I think that's Don Barnes, but I don't know. That trademark 38 Special sound that we had in the early 80s is long gone. And I don't know. I just wish I had some hooks on here. Now, some of the other albums that come before here, this record, there's some more, it's more hooky. This just doesn't have any. And things are just the way they are. So.
Oh, this is so great.
That's the way I hear it.
Yeah,
okay.
This is so great.
All right. What's your number?
So So my number 10, the next
Oh,
one
and
on my
number
list,
10. Yeah.
yeah, the next one on my list is the debut 38 special
Oh
from
my God.
1977.
Okay.
And now I will say this is a weird side thing, but I have noticed that of all the record labels,
Mhm.
A&M put the most into their 8-track designs because
Mm.
so here's the front cover,
Mhm.
here's the back cover. How many 8-tracks do you see that have the back cover photo on them? I've seen ones like this, I've seen Nazareth ones like this. They really went all in. Unfortunately, here's the thing, like, you know, if you're like me and you like to be a completist, you like to get all the albums by a band you like, sometimes there'll be those ones that are just really, really hard to find. They didn't sell a lot. They only got pressed once. And the first 238 special are never ones that you see all that often out there in the wild in any format. It took me a long, long time to find them on CD. And then you know, and most of the time you go, oh, that's terrible. I wish I could find those. And then every once in a while, there's a case where you find them finally, and you listen to them and you go, you know, I could see why these didn't sell all that much. Just not that memorable. This debut for me is elevated just a little bit above Special Delivery because it does have a couple songs on it that I like. I like the opener, Long Time Gone, like that one. And I like their cover of Chuck Berry's Around and Around. Other than that, Play a Simple Song is essentially a country song. That's not for me. I just find this, again, it's lightweight Southern rock. And when I say Skinner light, I know, you know, it's inevitable you're going to have those comparisons because
Mhm.
not only were they, you know, the Southern rock band, you got family here, you know what I mean? From the same place. Um, uh, uh, Ronnie Van Zant helped get them signed to A&M. My understanding is that A&M was going to drop them, then the plane crash happened, and then they couldn't bring it to themselves to do it. I don't know if that's true, but there are two songs on here that are so obvious, such obvious ripoffs of Leonard Skinner. It's like every Southern rock band has to have their whatever.
Mhm.
Fly Away is this 38 Specials Freebird, just not as good. Just Hang On is Tuesday's Gone. And it's got the same tempo and everything. And not only that, it even borrows from the lyric of Simple Man. If you do this, my son, or something like that. It's just it's so predictable. And man, I'm just really glad that record labels back then let bands develop because they developed into a really good band, but they, in my opinion, they were not there yet. So
Mhm.
yeah, for, you know, people can agree or disagree. For me, my least favorite 38 special, not the worst, my least favorite 38 special albums are the first two.
See, I rank those a lot higher, but this is what's going to be fun.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. I do want to mention something that I forgot to about the album Drivetrain. Now, on that record, it's just down to Don Barnes and Donnie Van Zant.
Yeah. And
Oh,
Donnie's not even with them anymore now, right? He
no,
retired. Yeah.
no, he evidently had a lot of hearing damage from over the years, and he had to stop touring. But I guess he and Don Barnes talk all the time. They're buddies, but yeah, he's out of the band. But man, when I saw him on the 80s cruise, Tim, they were top
So
notch.
who's with them now?
Well, Jerry Riggs is playing guitar,
Yes, that's
which,
right.
oh, it
That's
was
pretty cool.
awesome.
Yeah.
And
So
he
it's
and
not, so is Danny Chauncey still with them or is he not with them anymore?
he's with them.
Okay, he's been with them for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they were great.
Yeah.
And as long as you have Don singing, it sounds like 38 Special.
And Don still singing really well.
Sounds great.
Awesome.
See, that's why I'm listening to Drivetrain and I'm going, well, where's Don? He's on there, he's singing, but it just doesn't sound, I don't know what it is. Because it sounded like 38 Special when I heard him. But
Well,
anyway.
we're gonna get there. Oh, I can't wait.
Okay. So my number 10, I'm just kind of going backwards. I'm going to go with Resolution. It was on Razor and Tie, came out in 1997. This, again, we had a break. First album in 6 years. So we've got Donnie Van Zant, Don Barnes. Don Barnes is back for this record. He left after, I guess, did he leave in, he was on
87.
yeah, left in
Yeah.
87, though there is a track on that 88 album? Have to look. We're talking about a lot of albums, ladies and gentlemen.
He did those two songs, Back to Paradise
Rock and Roll 88 album, Rock and Roll Strategy. There is a Don Barnes track, or he helped co-wrote
Just say he didn't
write
sing on it.
something on there. No, he was out.
But
But anyway, Don Barnes is back. So that's great. Love Don Barnes. Love Don Barnes. So Don's back. Danny Chauncey and bassist Larry Judstrom.
Yeah.
He's all back. We also have a lot of songs on here co-written by Jim Peterick.
Yep.
Now, Jim Peterick, if anybody knows who that is, Isles of March, he co-wrote a lot of stuff for Survivor. Well, he was in Survivor.
He was in Survivor. Yeah. He co-wrote Sammy Hagar. He's written with Kevin Cronin. Yeah.
But Peterick's just a monster songwriter.
Yeah.
So him teaming up with 38 Special was really what they needed back in the day. We will get to that. But anyway, he's co-writing on this song. But I listened to it, Tim, and I'm going, well, you're back. Where are the hits? I don't hear any hits. I don't hear that magic that we had back in the 80s. Now, I know it's only 1997. Things haven't changed that much, or have they? It almost sounds to me, Tim, like it's a different band. I hate to say it. There's nothing like Hold On Loosely here. The band, though, seems energized. We've got Dawn back. We should have the chemistry. But, don't forget, we don't have Jeff Carlisi on here anymore.
That's a huge, he and Jeff disappeared.
Yeah, well, he quit. I mean, he talks about, there's some interview I saw on YouTube and he talks about it. But I think there's something magical about Donnie, Don, Jeff, that core. I think there was something magical. And when one of those pieces is missing, it's not quite there. Though when I did see Jerry Riggs play with them, Jerry Riggs, unbelievable guitar player, really adds a lot. He could play all those Jeff solos easy, no problem for him. What a great addition to the band. But he's not on this. Okay, anyway, I'm on a tangent. They sound real energetic, but there's nothing on this record that really sticks out. Like I said, it's a solid effort. But anybody wanting that magic from the 80s, you're not going to find it here. And again, I can't really pick out Don Barnes. Maybe you could pick him out easier than I can. I don't know. For some reason, maybe this is good. Maybe it sounds more like a groove effort. But we haven't heard what you're going to say about these yet, so I can wait to hear.
We definitely haven't. I've got plenty to say, but
so anyway,
it's good. We're all over the place already. Good. I love it. Yeah,
that's my number 10. And still, if you're a completist, yes, I say go out and get it. But if you're not, I would avoid it. But hey, Tim might say something else.
So my number 9 is actually the only piece of vinyl I'm going to show you, and I think this speaks to something. I picked this up at half price in '93, and it was still in the shrink wrap. Rock and Roll Strategy. Mm-hmm. They decided to spell out 38, which will forever screw everything up as far as listing things, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting. And okay, so yeah, Don Barnes is one of those great unsung singers, rock singers, because a lot of people know his voice. A lot of people don't know his name. To me, he's like Steve Walsh from Kansas. He doesn't get enough recognition because he's just Don has that perfect radio rock voice.
Perfect.
It's just, it fits the material. So he left. As it turns out, temporarily. He actually left and did a solo album, which did not get released till
20 years.
He did a solo album in '89 and it didn't get released till 20 years. Yeah, I think it's called Face the Storm. I've never listened to it, but
I know, I hate to interrupt, but since we're talking about that real quick, because I was going to bring it up if you had heard it. What I've read about it, that if you like that period of 38 Special, that that 80s period, I guess it's just a home run.
It's probably something I would like, because I don't buy everybody's solo projects or side projects, but with 38 Special, it's not like there's a ton of them. And Don was, the main voice of them at one point. So I probably would like it.
It's supposed to be good. I haven't gotten it yet, but it's on the list. Sometime I'll get it. It's on the list.
So Rock and Roll Strategy. This came out in 1988. And to me, a lot of my feelings about this album can be summed up in the album cover. It's washed out. It's bland.
Yeah.
I got to be honest with you. This album annoys me. This album just me, Grant. It's what you got to get it because you got to get all the catalog.
Mhm.
So they replaced Don Barnes with a guy named Max Carl. Max Carl's a name that you'll see singing a lot of background vocals on albums in the 80s. He's kind of like, before Mr. Mystery, he's like Richard Page or Bob Carlyle. Like, you'll see these names when they need the guys to come in and sing those perfect background vocals. Max Carl was one of those guys. He's a great singer. I don't personally think he's a rock singer. He sounds like a country singer to me. He doesn't sound, he's not a rock singer. He's too smooth. It's too, I don't know what you'd call it.
But Tim, dare I say late 80s Chicago?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. But he's got a southern thing to it, which is probably why he got the gig. But so this album was produced by Rodney Mills. They're back working with Rodney Mills. They didn't use him on the last album, but man, this album sounds weak to me. And those really processed 80s drum sounds. And okay, they took a title. They had a really cool title, Rock and Roll Strategy. And I hate that song. It's so weak. Rock and Roll Strategy. I want to hear some guitars. I want to hear some balls, man. I like, turn it up. It's got these silly little keyboard flourishes. Like I said, it annoys me. Now, this is weird because, okay, yeah, this album didn't do very well. Yet, out of nowhere, in early 1989, they ended up with the biggest hit in their entire career with Second Chance, which sounds absolutely nothing like 38
It doesn't
Special.
sound like 38 Special, but it is a killer song.
It's a great look. I have to admit, it's a great song. But it's like a James Taylor adult contemporary ballad. And Max Carl shines on songs like that. It's a great song. It went all the way to number 6 on Billboard. This is early 89. They're on the charts with Paul Abdul and the B-52s and Madonna. And here's old 38 Special one more time, creeping up the charts to a high they'd never gotten to before. They'd never had a song chart that high. It was a number 1 AC hit. But Grant, I think it means something, because how many bands can you think of that score a huge top 10 hit like that and the album doesn't even go gold? What does that tell you? It means people are buying the single, not the album. Now, so this has Little Sheba, Hot Lana. It's got a song called Chattahoochee, crying out loud.
Hot Lana's a good song, though. No?
Okay. No. I don't think. No, I just think this is a weak album. I like Coming Down Tonight's not bad. That was a single that hit the top 100. I hate rock. As far as the singles, I hate the title song. Never liked that song at all. It just bugs me. Coming Down Tonight's not bad, but you know what? My favorite song on this album, or the only song that I really like on this album, see, there you go. See, that's a yacht rock photo. Look at that.
It looks like Love Beach.
Kind of, yeah. But the last song on this album, Love Strikes, I don't mind that song. I think that's a pretty decent song. That's Donnie Van Zant song. But here's the thing. If that was on any other album, I wouldn't even give it the time of day. It's the one that bugs me the least. So, yeah, rock and roll strategy. Here's the thing. Rock and Roll Strategy, in some ways, the first 2 albums, they're just starting out and they're trying things. By Rock and Roll Strategy, they ought to know better. So, well, that's just my opinion. I know there's probably people that really dig this album. I've never been one of them. It's one of those ones, well, I got to get it because it's got Second Chance on it, and I got to get it to complete the collection. But I do not enjoy listening to it.
This was the era when A&M started to go to the band and said, oh, yeah, they would submit something, and then the A&M would throw it back out. They weren't getting support like they did. When Don Barnes was talking about it, he said, man, we didn't have to worry about anything. We would make a record, deliver it to A&M, and they would be fine. It got to a point, we had hits. And then A&M started to get their little fingers in there, and they would have people coming down from the label to sit in sessions and listen to them. And this is the part when A&M got involved.
Yeah. And, I think the previous album, there was a lot of meddling too, but that's
when it started. That's the album that started.
And that's what Don would be referring to. But with this album, there's no Southern rock here anywhere. It's just Southern pop.
Well, Southern rock's been gone with them for a long time.
Yeah, I know. And look, my hat's off to them. They scored a huge hit single at a time when bands, every band from their era was probably scratching their heads going, why can't we do that?
Mm-hmm.
But yet they didn't have a hit album to go with that hit single. It was kind of, it's a weird, I'm sure there are other examples, Grant, but I can't think of an example where a band had a song that did that well.
So big.
And the album didn't even certify.
But I don't think A&M promoted this record. I don't remember any promotion about it.
No, and if I recall correctly, Second Chance, I think, was the second single, and the album had been out for a few months, and it was not selling. So I just think people liked the song, and this is probably by now cassette singles were out, so they probably sold a lot of singles, and it just didn't lead to the album itself selling, and it was their last for A&M. So
I mean, it got up to number 6 on the U.S. chart.
It's amazing.
Number 2 in Canada.
Yeah.
I mean,
it still gets a lot of play up here. And it's not even one of the songs, and there are a few, it's not even one of the 38 special singles that classify as CanCon, and there are a few of those. But that just shows you how big a hit it was.
It was a big hit.
That's my number 9. You haven't mentioned it yet, so you're obviously going to rate it higher than me.
I am.
That's okay.
All right. Well, I hate to feel like I'm being predictable, but we hear it the way we hear it. So my number 9, well, for one, this is a horrible album cover. I wouldn't buy this anyway. Bone Against Steel. After the A&M fiasco, that was her last album. They took a break. I don't know, not very long. This is 91, Rock and Roll Strategies 88. Well, they took a couple years off. They got signed to a Charisma for one album, and then they produced this. Now, this is basically the same band as Rock and Roll Strategy.
Yeah, it is.
This is also the last album with Jeff. Jeff, after this, he's gone. And I don't know what he did after that, but like I mentioned Jeff before, his guitar playing, when I hear him playing, his sound is so unique to 38 Special that you can say, oh, that's 38 Special. When he left, they lost a lot of that. So, but it sounds like 38 Special, but this record sounds a lot like Rock and Roll Strategy. I think it's just like part 2. No Don Barnes, you've got Max Carl. And I have to admit, he sounds great. He's a great singer, but it takes 38 Special in a totally different way. But to me though, when I hear this, because of Jeff Khaleesi's on here, it sounds to me to be more 38 Special than the later catalog. Because the later catalog, somehow they've just lost their sound or lost their identity. I can't explain it. I know things change, but I think Jeff's guitar playing has a lot to do with 38 Special. He's the secret sauce. He's the secret weapon. And don't forget, he wrote a lot of that other stuff, co-wrote a lot of that stuff, and he's a good songwriter. So anyway, the sound of your voice leads it off. Max Carl, Jeff Khaleesi, Danny Chauncey, and we've got Jim Peterick back writing on this. Is catchy, well written, and I kind of like it. I don't think it's bad. It's catchy. At least we've got something from 38 Special that's catchy, because there's nothing catchy after this as far as I'm concerned. Though Tim is obviously going to prove me wrong, but that's fine. That's why we rank these things. This is fun. I think it's great. I think there are other tracks on here. Rebel to Rebel is great. Treasure is great. And these are also written by Jim Peterick. So that's also a secret weapon. When he co-writes these songs, he's such a brilliant songwriter that he just knows what to do. What we see here is a continuation, like I said, from the previous record. Well, we actually saw it from the album before, Strength in Numbers, where they were starting to go to that more slicker, more adult contemporary. I guess you could call it adult contemporary, more of a slicker 38 Special. Still sounds like 38 Special, but it's pretty slick. And this is yet slicker, but it's, like I said, still sounds like 38 Special, and it does have a lot to do with Jeff Khaleesi playing guitar. I don't think this is a bad record by any means, but not to the high standards in their heyday. And one of the beautiful things about this record is what Jeff brings to the songs, or his guitar solos. all well thought out, all well played. He just adds so much to these songs. So no, not as good as their heyday. Horrible album cover. What did they expect? Who would buy this? Does this say 38 special to you? No, it doesn't. Um, but I still don't think it's all that bad. Um, it's just sounds like part two of the previous record to me.
Cool.
All right.
Well, believe it or not, Grant and I actually, I think we're seeing a lot of things the same way,
We
just
are?
just not the same way.
Okay.
Because my next one, my number 8 is Drivetrain,
Okay.
2004, which is to date 20 years running. It's still the most recent 38 special album. And some bands can keep putting out new music and do it really well. I almost wonder if the guys, after this came out and said, you know what, guys, let's just tour the catalog.
That's what they do.
Because
They play everything. They don't play anything from this later stuff.
yeah,
They did play Hotlanta, and they do
okay.
play Brain Problem, the hit that you just mentioned. Max Carl, the ballad.
Second Chance.
Second Chance.
Yeah,
They play two songs from those records, and they kick. When they play Hotlanta, though, it sounds great.
It's
So
probably
anyway,
better live than the way it's produced. But so Drivetrain, I agree with you. This album sounds like they're trying really hard to, I don't know. It's a harder edged album. It's produced by Don Barnes, Danny Chauncey. I like the sound of the album, but it's almost one of those things where you would say, boy, I love 38 Special. I just wish they were mixed a little heavier. Well, be careful what you wish for, because when they do it, they no longer sound like 38 Special. It is hard to pick out on here which songs Don Barnes sings, which songs Donnie Van Zant. I can pick out Donnie a little bit easier. And most of these songs are ultimately very, very unmemorable. And Jim Peterick figures in. So I do not know
what happened.
Like, because they're a very capable band. There are 2 songs on here that date back to the 90s. Or one anyway. It's called The School. It actually dates back to 94. I don't know why it only just got recorded on this album. And the song Trooper with an Attitude originally appeared in 2001 from that ridiculous movie Super Troopers, which is a really silly comedy movie, which is pretty cool because they had a song and a soundtrack or a movie again. And I kind of like that one. And it's one of the only ones that I can remember how it actually goes on this album. They have a song in here called Hurts Like Love. And I can't even think of how it goes, but it sounds like Don Barnes is hurting when he sings. It's like he's singing through gritted teeth. There's no sense of fun. There's none of that. There's a certain playfulness with a lot of 38, the whole wild-eyed Southern boys thing. Oh, shucks. There's none of that here. It's deadly serious. The song Hiding From Yourself, which is a Donnie song, I actually have better songs on here. But yeah, this is not a great album. And it's kind of sad that this is the last recorded, work. I think if Jeff Carlisi came out of retirement or wherever it is he went, and he and Don, and like even in the writing stage, Donnie Van Zant, maybe Jim Peter put their heads together, they could still probably come up with a pretty good album. But as it stands, this is the last one, and it's ultimately unmemorable. I mean, everything's well played. I like the production sound. I just don't think I like it for this band. Yeah, and this wasn't easy for me to find. I had to find it used. It came out on Sanctuary, and I think that label went under not too long after this. But that's my number 8. So that's the first time I think we've had one that's the same.
But I totally agree with everything you say.
Yeah, I was agreeing the whole time you were talking. I'm like, yeah, I feel the same way. I just got these other ones to get to first.
See, that's why I just find it, because the way you just reviewed that, I would have thought that would have been lower on your list. But that's okay.
Well,
I'm not critiquing, but you obviously don't like this record. But man, you must really dislike those first 2 albums.
The first 2 albums to me are just completely unmemorable. And rock and roll strategy. I will say this: it's memorable, but in the wrong ways. I just do not enjoy it at all.
Well, I'm going to pretty much I'm going to agree with you on what you said about rock and roll strategy, but I rate it 1 higher. My number 8, number 9, Bone Against Steel and Rock and Roll Strategy, they're the same record to me. The only thing is, Rock and Roll Strategy does have Hot Lana, which I think is a standout track. Second Chance, yeah, I know it doesn't sound like 38 Special, but it's a great song
Good
and it's
song's a good song.
catchy. Yes,
Yeah,
good song is a good song. And you know what? If it got 38 Special a big hit,
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
fine with that.
Yeah.
Um,
And it's got hooks. All
there's
there's hooks
hooks,
all through that song, even though they don't sound like the old 38 Special song. The guitar line's a hook, the verses are hooks, the bridge is a hook, the chorus is a huge hook, the midsection's a hook. It's all hooks.
right? And I do like Max Carl. I like his
It's a
voice.
great singer.
He might not be the right guy, but they obviously thought he was okay for 1991,
Yeah,
maybe because of the hit. And it's unfortunate that this record didn't sell, but think about it. They had a good run all the way
yeah,
from 1980 to 1987, 88. Well, this is 88, so like 86. That's a good run for the 80s. But there are a couple other songs on here I like. Well, the other one I made a note of was Midnight Magic. It's very catchy, and it would sound like Top Notch 38 Special if Barnes was singing it. See, a lot of this, I still think it sounds like 38 Special. Is it Carlisi? Probably. But if we took out Max's voice or whatever, threw Don in there for the vocal, I'm thinking I might dig it because as far as I'm concerned, yeah, Donnie Van Zant's great. I get it. But that identifiable stamp that Don Barnes has. This is Don's band. I can't help it.
yeah,
You've got to have him singing the songs because it's all about the chemistry and all that. But I think if, at least on Rock and Roll Strategy, if you could put Don in there singing them, I think you'd go, yeah, that's good 38 Special. But Max is not the singer. So yes, it's slick, very slick. But they did get a hit, and obviously by this time the band was pooping out. You know, Don left for a solo career. You know, and I watched that interview, one of those interviews recently with Jeff Carlisi, and he said that's pretty much what happened. They had their two drummers, and I can't remember their names offhand. They left, people were leaving, Don left, and really that took all the air out of the tires. That really was the end of 38 Special. You know, they kept trudging along, but that pretty much did it. That's my number 8. I Would I really revisit this record a lot? No, I do like Hot Lana and Second Chance and Midnight Magic, but it's a lot better 38 Special than this. So that's my number 8.
yeah. The drummers in 38 Special were named Jack Grondin and Steve Brookins. I've never understood the two drummer thing. That's a Southern rock tradition that I've never quite understood. Grateful Dead had two drummers as well. But there is something I want to talk about at the end where it looks like they didn't always use two drummers. But anyway, yeah, no, my next one is going to surprise some people because it is reaching back into that classic era. And I think Grant's probably figuring, well, if he's named these four, what hasn't? Yeah, so mathematically, okay. We're getting into albums now that I don't dislike by now because I think they've got a pretty consistent catalog. So my number 7, 1986, Strength in Numbers. Not a very common thing to find in the format I'm holding up, by the way. This was the last one that was made available.
I've never seen one of those.
Yeah. So
well, think about this, Tim. You can barely find this CD in the bins ever.
Yeah.
It was a decent seller.
It was a gold record. It was their first one that went, they had 3 platinum in a row. Now they're down to gold. And this is probably where the label started to get antsy. I have the original A&M CD.
Okay.
And if you got this on vinyl, it's kind of an awkward concept, but it was die cut, and on the back, it's got the guys' faces, right? But on this album, this is the label taking no chances. They were dotting every I and crossing every T. They've got Keith Olsen producing this time. It's not Rodney Mills, who's produced all of their hit albums to this point. You've got additional musicians. You've got Jim Valance all over this album. He even plays
drums.
Yeah. Denny Carmassi on drums. Bill Cuomo on keyboards. Mike Porcaro on bass. Tom Kelly, background vocals. Like, you've got a ton of extra people on here. No chances were taken. And I also got the CD out to demonstrate that almost every one of these songs, it won't show up on the camera here, but almost every one of these songs has a multitude of writers. There's at least 3 writers on every song. And one of the most awkward songs on here, when you got a song with an awkward title, like Has There Ever Been a Good Goodbye? It can't be good. It's too much of a tongue twister. And you've got Don Barnes, Jeff Carlisi, John Bettis, Jim Vallance, and Larry Steele. 5 writers to write a perfectly mediocre song. So what is good on here? Okay, so the opener, Somebody Like You. That's pretty classic sounding. 38 Special. Pretty classic sounding 38
Great
Special.
track. Great.
Now you can tell that it wasn't their time anymore. And that happened to a lot of these bands. Peaked at number 48, missed the top 40. I remember hearing it on the radio for like 2-3 weeks, and that was it.
But now, no, but Tim, that's as strong as any of the.
Oh yeah, it's classic. It's classic 38 Special. It could have been on any of the previous 3 records. Yes. Like it's a great song. As is Like No Other Night. That was the hit off of this album. That got to number 14. It's a fantastic song, even if it does have 4 writers on it. But it's again, it's getting into that slickness, that slick sound that Rock and Roll Strategy had. And I think you're right. I think a lot of the songs on Rock and Roll Strategy would, even if they weren't that great, you got Don Barnes on there, and they'd be like, yeah, it's all right. I like Hearts on Fire on this album. That's a bit of a rocker. Good. I almost feel bad for Donnie Van Zant on this album because they relegate him to the last 2 tracks, and that's it. He sings 2 tracks of a 10-song album, and he used to be the only singer. Now, Donnie Van Zant, I will say this, he's a perfectly good Southern rock vocalist, okay? Don Barnes is a great rock vocalist, period, no matter what the genre. So, obviously, the label's going to be like, hey, every hit you've had has been with this guy singing. We want him to sing the bulk of the songs in this album. And it almost seems to me like every song on here, whether it's Last Time, Once in a Lifetime, Just a Little Love, One in a Million bugs me for another reason, but every song was written to be a potential single, and they overdid it. It's overproduced. It's too slick. It didn't go platinum. And it just, that was every band has peaks and valleys, and this is when they were starting to peak. 1 in a Million sounds almost just like Doing It All for My Baby by Huey Lewis and the News. It's almost the exact same song. And I don't, and look, nothing against Huey Lewis and the News. This is 38 Special. This is supposed to be a Southern rock band, like a harder Southern rock band. You don't want them sounding like Huey Lewis and the News. This is so nice. The recording on this is so 1986. I mean,
that's where, good.
So
I love the way, I'm glad you mentioned that, because this record's where things started to date, because you get like synth, you get like digital drums, and you start getting all those Yamaha DX7 type of keyboard sounds,
really wet drum sounds. And like, I love Toto. Why do you need Mike Porcaro to play in a 38 Special track? What 38 Special? What 38 Special?
Drummers are gone. They got rid of them, or they quit.
No, Mike was a bass player. Jeff was the drummer.
Oh, sorry, I'm thinking.
So, what's the 38 Special song that you think of and think, yeah, I could really use some really intricate bass line on a song? 38 Special isn't that kind of band. So, like I said, they were not taking any chances, but it just didn't quite. It worked okay. They got a gold record out of it, but yeah, I just don't think this is an album that's so peaks and valleys. There's the first couple tracks in here are fantastic, and there's like 1 or 2 others on here that I think are okay. I just don't think it's a very good album all the way through. That's why it's my number 7.
All right, cool. Well, my number 7, I'm going to go with the debut album from 1977. This is where it began, ladies and gentlemen. We know Tim rated it pretty low, but doesn't mean it's a bad record. This is full-blown Southern rock. Boogie, whatever you want to call it. This is Donnie Van Zant's baby. He dominates this record. They're much more of a bar band feel here. Don Barnes doesn't get any vocals. Yeah, he's singing background, but that 38 Special sound that we all know and love is not here yet. They don't know exactly what they're doing yet. They're patterning themselves more like after Leonard Skinner. And this is more Leonard Skinner, more Rossington Collins, more boogie rock type of thing. But
why wouldn't they, right?
Why wouldn't they?
It'd be pretty hard not to.
I wouldn't expect anything different.
Yeah.
They didn't realize the golden ticket was Don Barnes.
Yeah.
Uh, it's a decent debut, though. Like I said, I don't think the band's found their identity, but I'll take it over later 38 Special. At least this is a Southern rock. It's not offensive sounding. It's a decent recording. It's fine. If you like Leonard Skinner, yeah, it's Leonard Skinner light, but I don't find it as offensive as his later records with, I don't know. Didn't care for the production of those later records, and I just think this is a lot easier to digest. Play a simple song, Gypsy Belle. Gypsy Belle. When I hear that, I was thinking, we're an American band. That drum
Yeah.
beat, it's just like we're
Yeah.
an American band.
That's another. That's one of the things. It's derivative. It's very derivative
But
to me.
Jeff is playing really well on here, and it does have that sound.
Yeah.
You can tell that 38 Special, this is 38 Special at least. Yeah, we're a Southern version of it. Got Jeff Carlisi's guitar, work on here. So it does have that sound. At least this sounds like 38 Special as opposed to the later stuff. So it's my number 7. It's fine. It's okay. Is it one of those records that you need in the catalog? You do if you're a completist, but I don't
I'm
think
going to
if
say
you're
if
the
you see it
casual
in
fan.
cheap, buy it because it's rare.
Yeah, you're never going to
Because
find
if you
it.
don't want it, somebody you know could be looking for it. Because
Yeah,
the
here's-
first 2 records are very, very hard to find.
And this
What
is
version of that do you?
it's the
Okay,
A&M
you've got the
CD.
A&M one.
Yeah.
Okay.
uh-huh.
I got one on a company called Lemon Recordings out of the UK.
Yep.
And that's the only way I've been able to find it. My special deliveries is an old A&M disc.
Yeah, you don't see
Yeah.
these ever.
No.
When they came out in the late 80s, these all came out, okay, if you know Styx Crystal Ball, Styx Equinox, when they all came out in the late 80s, all these all came out at the same time.
Yeah.
And man, you never saw these, but you got to
No.
see plenty of Styx. It's just weird.
Yeah. And I think if you look at all of those A&M discs, they'll all say the original release date and then comma 1987. That would have been the year that all the CDs came out.
Yeah. Yeah. This one's 87. Like
Yeah.
9 of 8.
Yeah. Okay. So Grant's going to be like, what?
No, I think this is great. Hey, the more
my
that
number 6 is Bone Against Steel.
okay.
I hate the cover.
It's
I don't
horrible.
know what audience they were going for with this cover. It's like this could be a Ricky Martin cover or so. I don't know. It's just weak. Now, at least
Ricky
they
Martin.
started spelling it with the numbers again, and I see they're making a hammer out of it. I would have been perfectly happy with a black album cover and this thing in the middle. That would have been perfectly fine. Or this. But anyway.
This came out on Charisma, and the Knack put out Serious Fun on Charisma. They had the girl on the front.
Yep.
I don't think Charisma knew jack shit about doing album covers, or their art department was horrible.
You see there, I picked this CD up as a cutout within a year or so of it coming out.
Mine's a cutout. I think they're all cutouts.
Yeah. Charisma, it was interesting because Charisma was obviously, if you know Genesis Records from the UK, Charisma was a big UK label.
Right.
They decided to resurrect it in the late 80s, early 90s. It wasn't around very long. I think Maxi Priest was on Charisma. Like you said, the Knack was. What's his name? Brent Bourgeois.
Oh, Brent, yeah.
He was on Charisma. But yeah, they went under. They were distributed in the US by Virgin and ultimately Atlantic. But yeah, none of those albums did, anything that lasted. But why am I ranking this so high where I ranked Rock and Roll Strategy so low?
Yeah.
I thought you'd never ask. I just think there are more good songs on this album. Now, part of that reason you can sort through and kind of pick and choose. It is the first one that they put out in the CDH. There's 13 tracks on here. Maybe they could have trimmed it back to 10, but Sound of Your Voice is fantastic. That's a great radio song for 30th Special. It dented the top 40, which is quite something for a band like them at the time. I think it got to 33 or something. I do remember hearing it on the radio. It's a great song that is just begging for Don Barnes to sing it and make it legendary. 30, but it's classic 38th Special. And you're right, Jeff Carlisi is like the unsung guitar hero because those lead guitar lines he plays are just so memorable. You can sing them. They're lyrical, and they're all over this album. Now, Rebel to Rebel is a great song. I saw 38th Special the only time I ever saw them live was in '97. They did Rebel to Rebel, and it was really good. Obviously, that's one of the many songs that Donnie would have written with, his brother in mind, and the whole Leonard Skinner thing. Yeah, I kind of like the title song. It's like a storytelling song. Boney Gill, Max Carl, he's on this one too. He sounds really good. Signs of Love could have been an AC ballad, a hot AC ballad. It's very poppy, but then again, so was Second Chance. And maybe you can call it a guilty pleasure, Grant, because it's practically country, but I love You Be the Dam, I'll Be the Water. I think that's a great, really well-written pop rock song. Could have been a hit at another time, not in 91. As a matter of fact, I think it was 91 going into 92. Little trivia note on, I think it's Tear It Up, some background vocals from Brian Howe, the late Brian Howe, formerly of Bad Company, and Jack Blades. You can hear them on that song. I just think there's better songs on here than on Rock and Roll Strategy. It's produced by Rodney Mills. I think the production's not quite as slick. Yes, it's slick. It's commercial.
Slick.
Not quite as slick as Rock and Roll Strategy. I don't know. It just sounds a little. So.
Well, what about Strength in Numbers?
That's very slick. That's the.
Well, I mean,
I
think that these two sound very similar to me.
I think that Strength in Numbers and Rock and Roll Strategy, have a very similar drum sound. It sounds a little bit more natural on here, just a little bit, but not enough, obviously. I just think there are more good songs on here than Strength in Numbers or Rock and Roll Strategy. And I was as surprised as anyone, because I initially had this one further down and I listened to it. I'm like, you know what? I like over half this album.
Okay, cool. Awesome.
So I that's why I put it at number 6.
So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. We've got 2 different rankings so far. We haven't got to our top notch, our top 5 yet. We're getting there. This has been quite a discussion, but it just goes to show you maybe this catalog is a lot stronger than you think, because I can rank it one way, you rank it another way, and look how high you rated this particular record. So, hey, that's awesome. Okay, my number 6, I'm going to go with the second album, Special Delivery 1978. I don't think there's a sophomore slump here. I think this record's a little bit better than the debut, because it does sound a little bit closer to that 38 Special sound that we are getting to on the next record. And it's not quite as diverse as the first record. I think it's more honed in. But it is very similar to the debut. You could probably take all these tracks, mix them all up in a bowl, put them together, and
where they fall on each album. Yeah.
What Can I Do is a decent track. Can't Keep a Good Man Down is good. Nothing wrong with Donnie Van Zandt's vocals, but he is no Don Barnes. And Don is exactly what they need to make them stand out from the crowd. I think this is I just only rate this higher than the debut is because it just seems a bit more realized and closer to what we're going to get to. But I still rather to listen to this than the later records. So there you go. There, it's my number 6.
Cool. So my number 5 is going to throw everybody for a loop. Grant,
I think you just said that. Okay. Well, awesome. Resolution. That's great.
Awesome. Like I said, I saw them in like March of 97, and actually they did a meet and greet. So I met them all, and they said they had a new album coming out later that year. So I knew to look for this. Otherwise, I didn't have access to the internet at this point, but I happened to see this in the store and I picked it up. And I really like this album. Now, this is a very, very stripped down production. It was produced by the late Joe Hardy. So, I mean, he produced Steve Earle, and, he's, it's the opposite of slick. It's very rootsy sound. Yeah. It kind of sums up this picture right here on the back cover. And actually all the pictures inside of it, it's very, very, very stripped down. So they're kind of down to a core 4 guys at this point, even though they have like keyboard player and a drummer, Gary Morrow on drum, or Greg Morrow on drums. Yeah, Greg Morrow on drums, great drummer. You've seen his name other places, and Bobby Capps on keyboards. So Jim Peterick figures in on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 of the 13 songs on here, and I think it's to great effect. The lead song, "Fade to Blue," This is 1997 we're talking about here. They're on
Yeah.
Razor and Tie, which is primarily a reissue label, but this was a brand new album. Fade to Blue got a fair bit of radio play. I remember hearing it and being very surprised to hear it. It got to 33 on the Billboard mainstream rock chart, which I thought was quite an achievement. I also, not as much, but I also remember hearing the song Miracle Man on the radio. See, and there are songs, and I think Fade to Blue is a classic 38 special with Don Barnes back on vocals like he should be. Yeah, you're missing Jeff Carlisi, but you've got Don and you've got Jim Peter at co-writing, and it's so catchy. I get the chorus in my head for days. I think Find My Way Back is another really catchy song. Miracle Man, Shelter Me, and the songs that Donnie Van Zant sings, I think, are really good too, like Deja Voodoo and She Loves to Talk and Trouble. And I just think that there are a lot of great songs on here that, you know, obviously, you know, it was only going to do so well. I'm surprised it did as well as it did, but I definitely think this song is worth picking up. I just want to check. Okay, so Jeff Carlisi does figure in on the songwriting. He's on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 songs. He's on over half of this album co-writing. He's just not playing on it. So obviously there was no real animosity. It almost sounds to me like he just wanted to retire from the business, period, and just didn't want to bother with it. But I think this is a strong latter-day album. Now, you would think that I would prefer the harder sound of Drivetrain as opposed to the really stripped down, rootsy sound of this. But this has songs. This has memorable, hooky songs that the next album does not have. Is this a killer album? Is it a masterpiece? No, but it's a good latter-day 38 special album. I can't say that. I can't honestly say that about Drivetrain. And I also think this is a much better album than either of the Max Carl albums. Having Don Barnes back makes a difference. So that's why my number 5 is Resolution.
God dang. Awesome. Cool. All right. My number 5 is going to be from 1979, Rockin' Into the Night. Ladies and gentlemen, 38 special has arrived. And the opening track, Rockin' Into the Night, is a FM radio classic. Why did it take so long to get a Don Barnes vocal? What was it that happened? How did he get to lead this album off? I don't know. But my God, this is what 38 special sounds like. They have arrived. Great sound. The lyrics on this song are great. Of course, we have Jim Peter co-writing on this. This is where he really started to come into play, and they realized that they struck gold, found a sweet Madonna with a Bible in her hand. Just great stuff. Great song, great lyrics, great Jeff Carlisi guitar solo. And the track still sounds fresh today. No weird production. Everything's just rock and roll, just regular drums. Great 1979 production. Give it to me all day. Stone Cold Believer is a Donnie Van Zant track. Nice keyboards. It's more honed in because this whole album, it's starting to have this certain sound, and even on the Donnie tracks, they're starting to fit in. You're going, oh, that's a damn good song. So everything's starting to come into play. The Love That I've Lost is another Barnes vocal. That's a second one for this record. And there is magic. When Don is singing these songs, it's just taking it to another level. He's the secret sauce. And the other thing that I find very refreshing, now you might say this is filler, but there's an instrumental called Robin Hood on here. And I kind of dig that too. I mean, it's kind of nice to have an instrumental. Is it filler? Could be. I don't know. We also have another Don Barnes song, You've Got the Deal, which I think is another highlight track. I really like the album. And of course, there's only great things in store for 38 Special after this because they realize they have found it. Yeah, not all the tracks on here are perfection, but ladies and gentlemen, this is where they come into play. I think this is a decent record. I could recommend, it's got the other thing, it's got great artwork.
Yeah.
Come on, that's wonderful. This is the A&M CD too.
Yeah.
But top-notch artwork. This is where things start coming into play and everything starting to gel. So that's my number 5.
So if people know the catalog, they know what's left for me to talk about. And honestly, any of these 4 albums could be in any of the slots. I think they're all pretty much equally strong. So, but I had to put them somewhere. So my number 4 may surprise some people, but remember what I just said. On any other day, any of these could be number 1 for me. Wild Eyed Southern Boys, 1980.
Wow.
A little beaten up. This one's a little beat up.
Holy crap.
So, I mean, there are some songs that, to me, I call them perfect songs, bulletproof songs, in that it does not matter how many times I hear them. I never get tired of them, and Hold On Loosely is one of those songs. As soon as that riff comes up, I'm in. I'm air drumming. I'm air guitaring. You know, it's amazing. I can't believe it peaked at number 27. That's one of those cases where I think we talked about this with like Turn Me Loose and Working for the Weekend when we did the Loverboy one. The chart positions belie their popularity. Everybody knows Hold On Loosely, or you should. I think that Fantasy Girl should have done better than it did. I think Hittin' and Runnin' should have been a single. I think it's a fantastic song. The title song is a lot of fun, and it is a boogie rocker, but it is super catchy. I think that First Time Around is pretty good. Now, to me, this album, I put it at number 4. I think that some of the other songs are a little bit fillerish. They're a little bit throwbacks to the earlier Southern rock sound, like Back Alley Sally, just the name of it, right? Honky Tonk Dancer. So I think this is a Peaks and Valleys album, but the peaks are massively high. It's an enjoyable album to listen to from start to finish. I just think that the songs that stand out very, very much. So that's why Wild Eyed Southern Boys is my number 4.
Wow. Awesome. All right, cool. Wow, this is quite a ranking. All right, my number 4. I'm going to go with 1986's Strength in Numbers. Now, this is the last Don Barnes album until 1997, and there are some great tracks here. Yes, it's slick, but it's got Somebody Like You, which is classic. Top tier 38 special. This album starts off strong, like no other. Incredible. One in a Million, that's a great song. Has There Ever Been a Goodbye? I think there's a lot of great songwriting here. There's 5 people per track writing on here. Yes, the record company's getting involved, but I think it still works. Is there digital drums here? Well, to some degree, and that's not for the better. It's slicker, but I'll tell you, Don Barnes on this record sounds wonderful. I could listen to him sing anything. Jeff Carlisi, thank God, is here because his guitar on this record just kills. This is a kindler, gentler 38 special, a more commercial 38 special. I think it's a good album, and I don't have a problem with it. I've been playing this in quite a bit, which I didn't think I would be, but the more I play it, the more I like it. And like Tim talked about, this is where they recruited Jim Valance, who's playing drums, and then we've got Mike Porcaro. I'm not sure what happened to the rhythm section, why they quit. I think they might have just had enough. I'm not sure what the story was. I think maybe Don Barnes might have talked about that on the 80s cruise, but I don't remember. But yes, the band's probably falling apart here, but I think it's the last hurrah. This is the last album of classic, quote unquote, the classic period. So that's why I'm rating it at number 4, because it does have 3 outstanding songs, but you could say that with all the 38 special song albums. So I'm going to go with that. It's my number 4.
Awesome. Well, as my number 3, I'm going to talk about one that Grant just talked about, 1979, Rockin' Into the Night. In many ways, this could almost be considered their first album. It's the first album where they sound like themselves. I mean, this, and for a 70s album, this sets the template for 80s rock radio, what you're gonna hear. The title song, it's funny because the title song was a last-minute addition, as these things go. Their manager, Mark Spector, somehow knew John Kolodner, said, have you got any songs for these guys? And he grabbed this song that this band Survivor was working on for their debut album in 1979. And 38 Special learned it, recorded it. Apparently, it caused major friction between Jim Peterick and Frankie Sullivan, even though Frankie gets a co-writing credit on it. I mean, it's just it's a 38 special classic, but if you've
It
ever
is.
heard the Survivor version of it, it literally sounds like the same backing track with Dave Bickler singing and instead of Don Barnes. If you
What
get the
album is
ultimate,
that on? What album did that come?
you get the Ultimate Survivor,
Okay. Right.
which is a
Writing this
compilation.
down.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the Ultimate Survivor. That's a good CD anyway. That's just full of good songs. But it's got the Survivor version of Rockin' Into the Night. I don't think it's the same backing track, but you can tell that 38 Special just learned that song as it was and recorded it.
Well, what did they do? You know what they recorded that for? So they actually did a full version of it.
Survive. It would have been for their first album, which came out in '79.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
okay.
Which is also really, really hard to find. But that's, I've done lots of episodes talking about the first Survivor album is just about impossible to find. But I think it fits 38 Special better than it would have fit Survivor. I think it's a great song regardless.
Oh yeah.
But it does have a little bit of that Southern tinge to it, so it doesn't sound out of place. That's the thing. Jim Peterick wasn't like a Mutt Lange where he just comes in and takes over, and all of a sudden everything about the song becomes almost about the producer or the sound of it. Jim Peterick just knows how to get hooks out of people. If you listen to the stuff that he's did with Sammy Hagar, or I mean, there's a reason why Survivor had so many hits. People forget how many hits they had. He goes all the way back. Yeah, Vehicle by Edson Marks. That's a classic, and that's Jim Peterick writing and singing. Doesn't sound anything like this, but the guy knew his way around a catchy song. Yeah. But why I rated this album higher than Wild Eyed Southern Boys is that I think there's more good songs in here. I think the Donnie songs are better than the Donnie songs on Wild Eyed Southern Boys. I think Stone Cold Believer is fantastic. You're the Captain is really good. I love Turn It On. Take Me Through the Night is awesome. And then Don Barnes, The Love That I've Lost. I remember this was one of the later 38 Special albums I found, and I'd already been quite familiar with their sound or their classic sound. I first heard The Love That I've Lost. I'm like, where's this song been? How come I've never heard this on the radio a million times? It's a fantastic 38 Special,
it's fantastic,
radio-friendly song. I love the instrumental Rub It. Like, it's so cool. It's the only instrumental track they ever did. I think it's fantastic. It's a really good guitar showcase. This is a good album. I mean, it kicked the door open. It's the first time they worked with Rodney Mills. For the first time, they sound good on album. They've got a good production. I mean, the first two albums they're probably done in the shoestring budget. I think Dan Hartman produced them. I mean, Dan Hartman knows what he's doing, but this sounds better. It's a tougher sound. Initially I had this one lower, but I listened to it. I'm like, no, I can't really shoot holes in this album for anything. It's just really, really good. So that's my number 3.
I thought I pulled my next one, but maybe I did. All right, well, I'll talk about it. All right, I'm my number 3. I'm going to go with 1984's Tour de Force, 6th studio album. Again, 38 Special with these 1-2 punches on these records. If I'd Been the One, and then followed by Back Where You Belong. Goodness gracious. Man. Another great track, one of the lonely ones, but fabulous. 20th Century Fox, not the Doors song, but a great rocker of a song from the boys. Aggressive vocals, it's great. And the thing I like about 20th Century Fox is that you've got a lot of trading back and forth between Don and Donnie. I like it.
Yeah.
No, I like it when they trade back and forth. It's kind of like in Journey when, Greg and Steve Perry traded back. I love it. I love it. So you get that on this record. I think that works really well for them. You got, but this record really is a lot of Don Barnes, because back by this time, he's running this. I don't know if he's running the show. I shouldn't say that, but he's definitely the draw. You've got a Van Zandt song, I Gotta Let Go. But compared to the way the other tracks come across, that track sticks out like a sore thumb because that really harkens back to old 38 Special. This is more AOR, not so much Southern rock anymore. But this has the sound that they've tweaked from Rockin' Through the Night. The thing with this, the hits still stand above everything on this record, but it's solid and it's well worth buying on its own. I think, they just kind of tweak things, and I think it's a great record. Love Tour de Force. I don't really have anything bad to say about it. More Don Barnes, the better, as far as I'm concerned. But that's my number three.
Cool. My number two is 1982's Special Forces.
All right.
I mean, they're just going from strength to strength, and like I could never get tired of Hold On Loosely. I can't get tired of Caught Up in You. It's a great song. It's like another. It's not a dissimilar song, but it's just they're just finding out better. They're just getting so good at writing, that writing team, and
Yeah.
Peter does figure in on that too. It was a top 10 hit. It peaked at number 10, and they had another top 40 song in this album that never gets played. You Keep Running Away, which is really poppy, but I really like it.
Great.
I think it's a fantastic song. And Chain Lightning, that's the side one closer.
Oh, killer.
They were using, for guitar players, they were using drop D tuning early, and surprisingly for a band that wasn't like a metal band. But when it goes into that chorus, it goes way down to that low D sound.
And it makes a big impact too. Because you listen to that and you go, whoa. Right?
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Fantastic.
I like Breaking Loose. That's a good Donnie track. So is Backdoor Stranger. Roughhausen. They seem to have one of those boogie rock songs, one per album. And I think Don and Donnie sing background on all of them because they got 20th Century Fox, Wild Eyed Southern Boys on this one. It's Roughhausen. And that they're always fun. This is another great album. This is a pretty common one. If you're out crate digging, you come across this one a fair bit. And it's worth picking up. So that's my number two.
All right. Well, my number two is Special Forces. I love it. I love it. This is this was the fifth album, and I think this is really, well, I was going to say this is the perfect blend of pop, rock, and the southern aspects. But again, all my top three, Tim, you could ask me tomorrow, it might change. But Cut Up in You, FM classic. Chain Lightning, like we mentioned, killer stuff. When I saw him play it on the 80s cruise, it was phenomenal. And the audience loves it. It's a great in concert track for them. It works real well. You Keep Running, a classic. Roughhausen, another classic. This is my number two. I think this album is fabulous. Though next week, maybe I'd rate it a little bit higher. I don't know. But here we go. That's my number two for today.
Take note, folks. There's one time we had an album in the same position.
I can't believe it.
Yeah. So my number one album, obviously, mathematically, Tour de Force.
All right.
I absolutely love this album. Love the album cover. It's kind of dark, but I really like the album cover. I just think that this, to me, and this is just my opinion, I rate it. So this is their one perfect album where I like every single song on it. There's no skips on this album. There's nothing that's just okay. I think that they were just firing on all cylinders. If I've Been the One is such an amazing song. It manages to rock. It's got a touch of melancholy to it. It's got great guitar work. The drums are fantastic. Don Barnes' vocals are amazing on it. It's very smartly written. It's got a really great arrangement. I had said earlier that there are certain songs that get a lot of play up here in Canada by 38 Special because they're considered Canadian content. And there's two of them right in a row on here. They're both written by a guy named Gary O'Connor. First one is Back Where You Belong. I mean, that's a 38 Special staple. It was a top 20 single. Great song. Sounds like something they could have written anyway.
Yep.
And then the next one is probably the best shot that Donnie Van Zandt had in a single, because I think it did get some plays one time for Old Times. He sounds really good on that. It's really poppy for one that he sings. Gary O'Connor wrote both of those songs. If you're really astute in your AOR, he recorded as Gary O. He had a couple albums out in the 80s on, I think he had one on Capitol and a couple on RCA. Molly Hatchet, if you're a Molly Hatchet fan, he wrote the song What's It Gonna Take from No Guts, No Glory. So obviously Southern rock bands were looking to him for maybe some potential hits, even though the cool thing about that is, 38 Special would do songs from outside writers, but they already proved they can write their own hits as well. Now, I'm going to call this a total guilty pleasure because this is not normally my style of music, but I Ought to Let Go is so gosh darn catchy. They could have serviced this song to country radio in 1983, and they could have had an enormous hit. it's a country song. It's
Mhm.
got the boom, bam, bam, bam. It's got that chicken picking guitar, but man, is it ever catchy! It's a Donnie song. It's fantastic. Long Distance Affair is another one of my favorite songs in this album. That's classic Don Barnes. Um, Last song, Undercover Lover, that's a Donnie one. Like that. I love every song of this album. It is just so good. And one of the Lonely Ones is fantastic, but it almost sounds a little bit too much like Hold On Loosely with new
Mhm.
lyrics. But I like that structure. I like that song structure. So this is one thing I knew for sure when we were going to do this. This has always been my favorite 38 special album. So there you go.
Nice. Excellent. All right. Well, this one's always my favorite. So, and it's still my favorite. I'm going to have to go with Wild Eyed Southern Boys. When this came out, 81, this was a big record. Um, I do have a story. They were talking about this on the 80s cruise, and the band had nothing to do with this album cover. A&M art department put this together, and when they presented it to the band just went, "What is this?" And I don't think they even like it to this day. But this record sold really well, cracked the top 20, eventually went platinum. But to me, I think this is the best one. This has got Hold On Loosely, Wild Eyed Southern Boys. Wild Eyed Southern Boys is so great because, like I was saying, you've got Don and Donnie trading back and forth. And I love it. I love it when they trade vocals. Fantasy Girl, great track. Honky Tonk Dancer's wonderful. Back Alley Sally, I like it. The thing I like about this record is that they've just come into their own. They've really realized that, wow, I think we found it. This seems like the band is very well balanced. And what I mean by that, you've got a little bit of Barnes, you've got a little bit of Van Zant, and you've got Jeff Carlisi holding it all together. It just sounds well represented as opposed to being really dominant Don Barnes. And, I think this is the happy medium. And when I look at this, it just seems like everything is going just right. I could listen to this album all the way through. You think that there's some peaks and valleys. I don't feel that way with this record. I think this is the perfect 38 special album. It's because they're still in that infant mode, but it's still pure. Um, it just sounds pleasant to the ears. This album never gets old to me. Uh, it's my favorite. It's always been my favorite, so it'll probably continue to be my favorite. But I think it's a great record. Just the perfect blend of everything, the way I look at it.
Awesome. I didn't think we'd have a lot of differences when we got up to the top. And like I said, any of my top four could be flipped
Well,
around.
any of my top four could be flipped around.
I do want to mention a couple of things. All of these are, we've mentioned all these studio albums. This is useful if all you have are the studio albums,
Yeah.
because you got to have something with Teacher Teacher on it.
This has Teacher Teacher.
Yeah. So Teacher Teacher, there's another one that gets a lot of play up here because that's Bryan Adams, Jim Valance, right? And again, like Rocket Into the Night, if you get the 30th anniversary of Bryan Adams' Reckless, it's got the demo to Teacher Teacher. It's exact. 38 special, just learn the demo. It's also got Prisoners of Rock and Roll, which might be on your A&M years when that was a B-side of one of the Special Forces tracks. So it's from the Special Forces
I'll
era.
have to look.
This also has Just One Girl, which was the lone studio track on a live album they did in 99, 99, called Live at Sturgis, however you say that. And
Sturgis,
it's got a live,
yeah.
it's got a live version of Take 'Em Out. But it's also got some songs from Bone Against Steel and Resolution. And something, Grant, that came out last year, and I did a review episode of it, is this, which is Live at Rock Palace, 1981.
Holy crap.
And there's a series of discs that this company, WDR, put out from bands that appeared at Rock Palace. And I wanted to mention that because, like I said, they had two drummers at this point. This is from 81. But because they're playing a festival, I'm wondering if there was only room to get one drum set on stage because it's only Jack Rondon that plays. So this is a CD DVD set. Yeah, this is a CD DVD set. It's really good. It's got 11 tracks on it. I highly recommend it. This is 38 special in their prime, playing in Germany to this big rock festival, and they go over really, really well. And he didn't end up singing a lot of the songs, but Donnie Van Zant was a very entertaining frontman, so he was the leader of the band on stage. If you're a 38 Special fan, I would highly recommend picking this up. This is the first new thing that's come out from them in a long time, so I had to pick it up.
Cool. Yeah, I have to check that out. I've not seen that. Well, you'd have to order it online. I've never seen it anywhere. How's the sound quality on that?
It's not bad. I mean, it sounds like a soundboard. And like I said, there's a bunch of them in this series. Most of the groups, so they all kind of look the same. So it's got the Outlaws, Johnny Winter, Dickie Betts, Molly Hatchet, Spirit, John Cipollina, Starry Eyed and Laughing, Terry and the Pirates, Trail of Dead, Jorma Conan. He was in Jefferson Airplane, right? Yeah. Commander Cody and Roger McGuinn. So there must be a series of them. And they all
I wonder if those are considered gray area, gray markets. Because I don't know. Where are those from? Italy? Where are those pressed at?
Well, it says made in MIG, made in Germany, WDR, Rock Palace. So if the Rock Palace, because I've seen different things on YouTube from Rock Palace shows, right? Maybe it's like King Biscuit. Maybe they decided to get into the reissue. But yeah, CD, DVD, and it's definitely worth picking up, because this would have been the Wild Eyed Southern Boys tour. There's 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, there's 5 songs from. I mean, there's songs from all of their albums actually to this point, all 4 of them. So yeah, it's really. And another thing that made me think of this, they do Robin Hood on here, which is really cool.
Nice. Have to check it out. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we did it. We ranked it. Took us an hour and a half, but we did it.
Yep.
So I think basically what we can come up with is that I'd say that this catalog's very strong, because we all hear things differently, and you might want to just venture out and pick whatever you can pick up if you like what we've told you. If not, this is a fine anthology, and the one that Tim recommended, the 2 CD set on Hippo. I don't know if that's still in print, but that definitely might be all you need.
Flashback Anywhere, that's a pretty good one too.
So anyway, keep your eye out, listen to some 38 Special, but please, in the comments, let us know what you think. We want to hear from you. What's your ranking if you're a big 38 Special fan? Or what's your favorite 38 Specials album? We just want to hear it, or song. Tim, what's going on in your world? Anything you want to talk about real quick or promote or anything?
Tim's Final Confessions is rolling along, Grant. I've got my 2 books unspooled. That's why I pulled all the 8 tracks out. And my Y&T book, both still selling. And as Grant knows, working on a 3rd one. Not quite ready to talk about it yet, but I've got two new episodes a week, and I've started a Friday feature where I find an album that's celebrating a release date anniversary, and I talk about it for 3 or 4 minutes. So that's a new thing that I've started doing.
That's good. All right, cool. Well, Tim, thanks for coming on. It was fun ranking. Hopefully we can come up with something else to rank, because these are
we'll find something. Yeah, we'll find something.
So anyway, please check out Tim's channel. His link's down below. Check out his books. I'll put the links down there to purchase his books. He's got one coming up, and we'll let him announce that when it's time. So anyway, please like, subscribe, the whole routine, and please leave a comment, for God's sakes, and check out Tim's channel. So thank you, Tim. We'll see you. Thanks everybody. We'll see you on the next one.